Well, my early childhood was rather uneventful. I grew up on a farm about 30 miles from Fargo, North Dakota. When my education started in the first grade at a 2-room rural school. I was one of 2 children in the first grade. When I graduated from high school in a nearby town, I was one of 15 in the graduating class. One event that was very special to me was when I was 7 years old. I was visiting in the home of my aunt and uncle, and I heard my cousin playing the piano. And I was so impressed that I thought that'd be something I'd really like to do sometime. So the next morning I asked my mother if she thought I could learn how to play the piano. So she wisely asked a friend who suggested that they buy a new piano for me rather than an old used piano that had broken keys and out of tune. I needed to have a new piano to show their confidence in my decision. So a few days later, we went to the DeVoe Music Company in Fargo, North Dakota, and we selected a Steinway console piano. And then I started my weekly piano lessons at that time, and I continued with lessons through my high school years. Interestingly, that piano, which was my first and only, followed me from North Dakota to Pennsylvania, and then to North Carolina, and now it's at the Salem town. My organ playing was on a Hammond or a Baldwin organ. I never played a pipe organ until I was in college. My music recreation during my high school years was to play gospel hymns. Every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, I would listen to the radio for the Charles Fuller Old-Fashioned Revival Hour. And I was very impressed with Rudy Atwood's piano playing. He had a beautiful evangelistic piano style in playing hymns. So I would try to imitate him right after the radio broadcast, the best I could. And then I went to and became a freshman at a Lutheran college in Moorhead, Minnesota, which is just across the river from Fargo, North Dakota. And of course, that was the end of my interest in gospel hymns. I had other things that superseded that interest. My first year, I majored in clarinet and minored in education, music education. And then the second year, I majored in piano, and my third and fourth year, I majored in organ. The reason for that was that in my second year of college, I met a gentleman named Arthur Poyster, who was a professor of organ at Syracuse University. He had just performed an organ recital at the First Methodist Church in Fargo. And my college professor arranged for me to audition with Dr. Poyster. And Dr. Poyster accepted me as a student for the 3 summers during my college years. And then also, I was accepted into the graduate school at Syracuse for a Master of Music degree. My time at Syracuse University was one of the most challenging times in my music study. That's the only time I ever practiced more than 8 hours a day. Because if I didn't practice 8 hours a day, I probably would not be able to qualify for a master class, which is very important to me. So I accomplished that periodically. But after my 3rd summer there, and even though I'd been accepted to the graduate school, I realized that a career of recitals and private teaching in a studio or in a classroom probably wasn't the best direction for my professional career. But during that time at Syracuse, I met 2 or 3 full-time ministers of music in the Syracuse area in the Episcopal Church. Up to that point, I'd never realized there was a full-time position of that type in a church. So I decided to explore that opportunity in the Moravian Church. So I wrote to the Moravian Seminary in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and expressed my interest in attending the seminary, and also my hope that I would be able to have a ministry in music. But my reply was that a full-time minister of music position would be very unlikely in the Moravian Church. But possibly I could enhance a pastoral ministry with my music. So I applied and was accepted at the Moravian Theological Seminary. And then Dr. Poyster, who understood my decision, arranged with one of his colleagues, Arnold Blackburn, at the University of Kentucky for me to continue my graduate degree for my Master of Music at the University of Kentucky in the summers during my seminary years. So I received my graduate degree from Kentucky in 1963. But of no surprise, that was the end of my clarinet career, and I donated that instrument to my college.
I'm ready any time you want to start.
After I graduated from seminary in 1961, I was ordained in my home church out in North Dakota, the Bethel Moravian Church, in which congregation I was also baptized and ordained and confirmed. The first call was to be a minister of Christian education at the Central Moravian Church in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. While there at Central, I was made aware of handbells by Jane Nelson, who was a member of the Daggett, Michigan Moravian Church. She had a small set of European bells from somewhere, I'm not sure where, but she was making a trip to Bethlehem and expressed the hope that I would be able to arrange a tour of the Schumeric Carillon Company in Sellersville, Pennsylvania. So Jane, when she arrived, and I took a tour of the Schumeric Carillon Company, and at that time I saw the potential that handbells would have in a Christian education program at Central Church. So we ordered a set of 25 handbells for Central Church. They arrived in August of 1963, but that's also the same month I accepted a call to Home Moravian Church in Winston-Salem. The second call to Home Church was a combination of 3 existing positions: a minister of Christian education, a choral director, and an organist. The job description was really somewhat overwhelming, but when you're only 27 years old, you're always up to a new challenge. Interesting enough, the numeric membership in 1963 was approximately double the membership of the congregation today. We acquired our first set of Schumeric handbells at Home Church in 1964. And the mystique of that handbell sparked a new energy in the musical life of our congregation. The involvement of the young musicians, which we identified as the Hussite bell ringers, became one of the most memorable periods in the musical life of Home Church. The camaraderie that resulted in lifelong bonds of friendship and service to the church, to the community, and beyond was exceptional. My journey of faith and service has consisted of 10-year cycles. The first 10 years were at Central Moravian Church in Bethlehem, as well as Home Moravian Church in Winston-Salem. The second 10-year cycle I was involved with the national leadership of the Handbell Association, and I remained as church organist locally. And my third 10-year cycle was the pastoral ministry, serving as the pastor of the Christ Moravian Church in Winston-Salem. And the fourth and final cycle was a renewing of some business interest, as well as being an organist in 3 different churches. Now, the one exception to that 10-year cycle is the local Hussite handbell ringers. That program started at Home Moravian Church, was incorporated as a nonprofit community organization, and existed for 35 years, including of roughly 175 handbell musicians. I believe the most rewarding part of my ministry was both from the keyboard and the pulpit, the musician and pastor. My 58 years of some form of ministry has been special, whether it was providing music leadership for 20 worshipers or for several hundred, or completing a major renovation of a church property when members said it could never be done, or sharing the joys and sorrows within any faith community in which we served. We tried to give our best, whatever the commitment and the challenge. My life journey has been a joint venture with my wife, Sarah. Also, our children made numerous adjustments in their lives to make this journey possible. And for this, I'm grateful. The focus on the path traveled was guided by the motto of the Lutheran College, from which I graduated in 1958. Solo Deo Gloria, to God alone, the glory.